this is, I know that many of the members in the audience are from many areas. We have a mixed audience here. Mixed audience, in some ways, is more challenging because it's not all health professionals, which I'm more used to providing lectures and presentations to. So our mixed audience, we're some Democrats, some Republicans, yes, no, some USC, some UCLA, and some other. Yeah, certainly some with COPD. I know are in the audience, and some that don't have COPD. Some healthcare professionals, and some not. And some interested members, and some strong supporters. And I welcome all of you. I want to provide you with a presentation that I hope will provide you information about COPD and lay the groundwork for some of our agenda for the rest of the day. So I've entitled this COPD Through the Looking Glass. I am from the West Los Angeles VA, and I think you have a snapshot of that. Let me make sure. It's a stock photo. It now has, the VA has put solar panels throughout. And so if you come by there, you'll see that there's solar panels that throughout the parking lot on both sides. So that's good news. The bad news is that we're still negotiating with DWP to be able to use them, but in time. So I entitled this talk COPD Through the Looking Glass because I think it sort of amplifies or symbolizes what I'm going to try and talk about. And many of you, or all of you, know about Alice in Wonderland. It's a childhood favorite written by Lewis Carroll. Many of us remember it more from the cartoons and movies than actually the book. And Looking Glass in Lewis Carroll's time was a mirror. And so there's Alice, illustration from one of the original versions. And Alice is looking through the mirror, and she goes through on the other side. And once on the other side, she finds things are very different than her world. And many of us think of Alice in Wonderland as just one single book, but it's actually two. Through the Looking Glass is Lewis Carroll's second book about Alice and her exploits. So Through the Looking Glass is what I'm going to start this presentation with, and what Alice found. And so we're going to go through the Looking Glass, and we'll see what we can find about COPD. So that's the impetus of my presentation. And if you were to go back, for those of us who were in medical school in the 80s, before, what we knew about COPD was this picture. Saw two patients, one thin and emphysematous, one sort of stocky and bloated. You know, this is Frank Netter, who was a medical illustrator. The pink puffer and the blue bloater. Very sort of classic descriptions of patients with COPD. Well, I think that was an apt description of patients with COPD in the VA hospitals. And maybe that was where he got his inspiration. And it's very similar to what we have today. But this is certainly not that generation of COPD. It's far from it. So what can I tell you about COPD? Well, much as you've already heard, but it's I used to have this as the fourth most common cause of death in the U.S. It's actually now third. It's increasing. It's the only cause that's been increasing, and it's actually doubled in the past 30 years. It costs a lot of money to treat, manage. 20 billion, maybe 40 billion. And how many people have COPD? Well, nobody really knows. You know, is it 12 million? Is it 16? Is it 24? It's probably double whatever the numbers are. And by the time that people come to attention, they probably lost half their lung filters. So they come a little later on the cost. And certainly that what we knew, 20, 30, 40 years ago was that smoking was the most common cause of COPD. But it's not the only cause, and I want to provide some information on that. This slide just gives you an idea about where COPD pertains in comparison to other causes of death. And you can see it's the only one that's increased, over 60%. And all the other diseases they've looked at, other causes, cardiovascular disease, coronary disease, stroke, cancer, they've all come down because the public and government and research agencies have paid attention to it. There's research money in it. And frankly, you know, COPD just hasn't garnered that attention that these other conditions have. And so there's less support behind it. So what is COPD? COPD, and I'm going to flip back and forth between some medical definitions so we all are on the same page. But it's, this is the GO guidelines that were released in 2011. And so very straightforward definition. COPD, or chronic obstructive pulmonary disease, it's uncommon, so it happens a lot. It's preventable and treatable disease. So common, preventable, and treatable. So those are not terms that you heard. Well, common, yes, but preventable and treatable, you didn't hear that in Lewis Carroll's time. You didn't hear that 40 years ago. Characterized by persistent airflow limitation that's usually progressive and associated with enhanced chronic inflammatory response in the airways and the lung in response to noxious particles or gases. So I think that gives you an idea about what affects its lungs. It's chronic, it's progressive, and it's because you inhale things that are not good for the lung, whether it be particles or gases. And then that you have exacerbations, that is worsening of the condition, and other things contribute to the severity. So all these are play a role in making the disease more severe for the patient. So, through the looking glass, we just threw up some perceptions of COPD that probably were prevalent certainly 40 years ago, 50 years ago, and certainly even now. I think that's, and I hope to be able to dispel this, but it's felt that COPD is a disease of men. You see the picture better, elderly, smokers, only affects the lungs. It's diagnosed too late for any treatment, it's not manageable, and it's untreatable. So a very nihilistic view of COPD. So let's talk about disease of men and the elderly. Well, I think that might have been the condition when we first encountered it, because we only encountered patients with COPD when they were in late stages of life. But here is this is data from very recent national healthcare data. The Center for Disease Control, National Center for Health Sciences, and many other sources. And what do you see here? So if you see here, and I'm not sure what people consider elderly anymore. I think that 80 is probably the new 65. But even if you go here, certainly 85 is an elderly person, even 75 or 65, where retirement used to be. If you look here as the age categories, you have people with COPD who were younger. Certainly, even to young adult, you would never think one might have COPD. But certainly a large portion in the middle age category. So productive adults. So this here refers to women. So what's the most striking thing about this is that each category, there are more women with COPD until this age group here. And I guess that sort of reflects, it's hard to know, but it's not statistically significant. That much I can tell you. So, bottom line is, most people with COPD are younger than 65 years of age. They're not retirement, they're not elderly in any sense of the word. They're productive years of life. And the vast majority of those without COPD don't even know they have COPD. They're undiagnosed. So there's another way of looking at this prevalence. This is several years period. And so it's all comers. And this is the percent of patients with COPD based from more surveys. And so that it's about, at their best estimate, 6%. You can see here, no matter what year that you refer to, there's more women than men. Who knew that? So this is very striking. There's more women with COPD than men. Who would have thought that from those pictures that you saw? And there's more women with COPD. COPD is more common in women than in men. I don't have a slide for this, but there's a study that was done about 10 years ago, and they presented scenarios of two patients. One a man, one a woman, very similar symptoms, cough, sputum, phlegm, shortness of breath, and presented to physicians, and 80% of physicians in the men would diagnose them with COPD. And in the women, only about half is considered COPD. Most of those women with the same symptoms were considered to have asthma, which is a sort of very different disease. So not even on the radar of physicians. And so we know that COPD is related to various factors, cigarette smoking being the most common. But there's other conditions, and you can list here, including secondhand smoke and air pollution. But it's all influenced by other factors playing. So genes, certainly alpha-1 antitrypsin is a genetic inherited disorder where it facilitates the development of COPD emphysema. Infections make it worse. Your socioeconomic status can cause the condition to progress, and it's actually worse than the lower socioeconomic class positions. And it obviously is worse as you age. So those are things that are pretty well established. But what about this concept? COPD is a disease of smokers. Well, I think that's true. I mean, it's true, but it's not exclusively a disease of smokers. So this is a study from Peter Barnes, published in 2009, and it talks about the burden of COPD in the world. So it's a little hard to read, but this is from USA's here, NHANES study, and this is the proportion of patients with COPD who are non-smokers. So they specifically asked, do you smoke, you don't smoke, non-smokers. And what do they find? At least in the US, they have a quarter of the patients with COPD who are non-smokers. A quarter, 25%. That's probably unheard of, because I think when I was a medical student, they told me that 90% of patients with COPD were caused by smoking. So that's a drastic change. And so look at the rest of the world. You know, Colombia, 40%. South Africa, almost half of their patients with COPD are non-smokers. Who would have guessed? China, 40%. And you can see that a global survey tells you that COPD is common in the world, but it's not all due to smoking. So in their estimate, 3 billion people in the world are exposed to smoke, but there's only 1 billion smokers. So that explains a lot of this. What kind of smoke are they exposed to? Well, I'll go into this a little bit, but this gives you a little different breakdown, and I think that you can see that even by age, these are patients, female and male, with Gold Stage 2, which is sort of a moderately severe classification of COPD. It's only abused as a senior, but it's 10,000 patients, so a lot of patients. And so what's clear though, that while non-smokers have COPD, they don't have as severe a case as a smoker. That makes sense. That's damage, but as they get older, there's more and more non-smokers who develop COPD. So their estimate in this worldwide survey is about maybe 12% of patients who have never smoked, not even one cigarette, have COPD. But in those more severe disease, it's a higher percentage, about 20, almost a quarter. And you can see that this increases with each age category. So obviously for females and males. So there's smoking is a common cause, but it's not the only cause. And what else could be the cause? There's biomass fuel. Biomass fuel is smoke that's related to using coal and wood and biologic materials in smoking and heating and closed cramped quarters where there's poor ventilation. Well, so investigators looked at this and said, well, you know, maybe it's all the biomass fuel in these countries. Well, if you look at it though, how much biomass fuel is used out there? So the red is the worst. So in Africa and Asia, 75% of the households there use biomass fuel. And there's obviously no data. In the U.S., well, we don't use biomass fuel. We use electricity and gas. So it's not biomass. It's considered clean. It's not really clean, but at least it certainly doesn't pollute our indoors. So where's the biomass fuel source in LA? We have all these smokers or non-smokers with COPD. Where are they? Where's the biomass fuel? What is it? Well, let's take a look. Well, there's clearly some exposures that increase the risk for COPD. So So indoor air pollution, and obviously smoke is the most common, but occupational exposures. And here, I want to call your attention to outdoor air pollution. There's air pollution, and there's pollution in occupation from people who work in the auto industry. And as well as crop farmers, animal farmers, steel, and other things. So, but in California, in Los Angeles, we don't have crop farming, at least not in downtown LA. We don't have animals, at least we don't have that many textile plants. Where is our exposure? Well, I'm sure most of you drove to this conference. There's our exposure. Our exposure is all the automobiles. And this is an old picture, but this was sort of the 10 and the 405 this morning. And what does it do? It creates smog, creates air pollution. This is actually a good picture of downtown Los Angeles. But if you look at it, it's hazy. If you didn't know there were mountains behind that skyline, you would, if I didn't tell you that, you would never know. There's the San Gabriel Mountains on a clear day, maybe twice a year. You might be able to see them. And so it's the air pollution that we inhale and secondhand smoke is probably the cause of the COPD in non-smokers. I thought this was interesting. This is not new information. This is some information that has been around for a while. They knew the air pollution was bad. This is a slide. You can't read in the back, but sort of people with gas masks at a dinner. And the back logo, if you go on the internet, you can see it says, "Why wait until 1955?" So this is something they've known for over approaching 60 years, that air pollution in LA is bad, it's not good for your health. So why wait till 1950? Why wait till 2012? Why wait till 2013? We have to do something to correct this. How does this relate to Los Angeles? Well, this is a lead to our presenter later this afternoon. So we have some information about COPD in Southern California and Los Angeles County that will be part of the Behavioral Risk Factor Surveillance System report. So another teaser for later on this morning. So it only affects the lungs. I'm just going to go through these a little quicker. It's it certainly is. The lungs are the port of entry for this smoke and these environmental toxins. But it doesn't only affect the lungs. COPD has other comorbidities and manifestations that are probably related to COPD, but are not well known. But it's certainly clear that patients with COPD have higher episodes of anxiety, depression, have lung cancer. Lung cancer is a lung. But they also have hypertension related to smoke, COPD, heart disease. Muscles don't work as well, they get weak, osteoporosis, diabetes, metabolic syndrome. All these are part of the manifestations, systemic manifestations, and comorbidities associated with COPD. What does Gold speak about? They recognize this. So COPD often exists with other diseases that impact prognosis. And so in general, the comorbidities shouldn't alter what you do, but you should realize that you should treat them as well, and also the patient with COPD, because you might find the two in tandem may improve the quality of life for the patient. All right, well, COPD is diagnosed too late for treatment. I think that it's never too late. I think is the message I'm going to tell you. But I think this is a classic figure from Richard Pinto and Fletcher about the natural history of COPD, and then every medical student has seen this picture, and it just tells you that this is your lung function declines. It's based on spirometry or the forced inspiratory volume. It's a measurement. It declines and it starts when you're 25. So I don't know how many are younger than 25 here. All right. Well, there's a few. Well, so you're not quite reached your peak yet, but it's going to get close. So when you start at 25, and you decline thereafter, but the decline is small. And if you haven't smoked, you decline at a very slow rate. But if you're a smoker and you're susceptible, that is, you have the genetic makeup and other issues that worsen, you can decline more rapidly. And you can actually decline until you're sort of disabled. And you can see here that the patients who decline usually can become disabled when they're in the middle ages, 55, 65. This is a little steeper. But if you stop smoking in middle age, you still decline, but you decline at the same rate as if you didn't smoke. So you halt or you decrease the severity of that decline. And this is beneficial irrespective of the age you stop. So even if you're in your 60s or 70s, you stop and then you take on the same sort of decline as patients who are non-smokers. So there is something that can do that can stop this. It's not inevitable that it's progressive. So stop smoking, that's pretty easy. Everyone sort of knows that. What about the too late for treatment? I think the other thing I want to describe is that many people don't know about COPD. And this I found very recently, but most people don't know about COPD, don't know the term. And so if you look at this graph here, that it's estimated that we have a much larger number of patients with airflow problems, airflow limitation, that actually have the diagnosis of COPD. So maybe a quarter, that's why the estimates are imprecise. So either COPD is double what it is or triple, nobody's clear, but it's clear that they've done surveys and that COPD is not a term that is part of the public jargon. So only about 50% really know about COPD. Instead, if you ask them, patients with COPD, what they have, a quarter will say they have COPD, but the rest will say they have emphysema, which is synonymous, but they don't equate that as COPD. No, I don't have COPD, I have emphysema. I don't have COPD, I have chronic bronchitis. You see, more people have that. And so, and I think the upshot is that most people aren't diagnosed with COPD, and even if they have it, they're not quite sure exactly what it means, because there's various terms that have been used in the medical literature about this. So how do you know you have COPD? Well, I think most of in the audience either know how to screen or are aware of some, but there's a simple, very effective, validated population screener. And this is very, very simple questions as to, could you have COPD? And this was published in COPD, the journal COPD about 4 years ago. But it assigns points and it asks you very simple questions. How many times do you feel short of breath? Do you ever cough up any phlegm? Have you have things that you could do because you have breathing problems? Smoked at least 100 cigarettes? And how old are you? So each of these are risk factors. They identify a scale. And if you have 5 or more, you're higher risk of having COPD. So I can see that if you feel short of breath some of the time, you have 1 point. Cough up phlegm, another point. If you had breathing problems, another point. If you smoked 100 cigarettes, 2 points, that's 5 points already. And then you add some for being older, and then you're higher risk for COPD. And so that part of what this is to identify populations to then proceed with identifying confirmatory tests to establish COPD. So once you think about COPD, somebody who's got a diagnosis of dyspnea, cough, sputum, have exposures, spirometry is required. The current definitions require that you have a certain value of the FEV1 FVC ratio. And so you have symptoms, you have the risk factors, and then you have to undergo spirometry to make that diagnosis. So, you identify risks. It's not too late to get treated, but it's untreatable. I mean, once you have it, you can't treat it. Is that true or false? Well, that's obviously false. Certainly, smoking cessation has the greatest capacity to influence the course of COPD. You've already seen that slide. There are treatments available now for relieving dyspnea, sputum production, ways to stop smoking, and it's pretty clear that regular exercise, physical activity, pulmonary rehab certainly is something that will help patients manage their symptoms. The goals of treatment are, reducing symptoms, and part of that includes using medications, but also things to improve the health status, treating your comorbidities, maintaining your muscle tone, and prevent progression. Preventing progression usually starts with stopping smoking and continues with things such as influenza and meningococcal vaccination. All these results in less mortality. Now, I give this not so that I show this slide not so that you can read it, because you can't read it, but this is a summary of new drugs that are in development or targets for new drugs for COPD. This is just COPD alone, and this is probably astounding for those of you in the audience who are not aware of this. But certainly there are new drugs, new bronchodilators, do corticosteroids. Those are sort of more or less more of the same medications we have here. But now there's strategies. Many of you may have heard of using an antibiotic to prevent exacerbations. Antibiotic means azithromycin. So 3 times a week may be effective. There are things to change the immune system to minimize the inflammation and destruction that occurs. Antioxidants, other cell lives that are involved, preventing fibrosis, clearing phlegm, treating other conditions, preventing cell death, regenerating lung. I think you can see the list goes on and on. So COPD is not, the pharmaceutical world and the rest of the world are starting to pay attention. It's a large problem, a lot of deaths, it's not getting better, so we have to attack it. And so it's not just drugs to help people breathe better, it's also drugs to help stem the course of the disease. So I think that spirometry starts us off, COPD. I think that now you've seen this, driver COPD, it's becoming more mainstream. See here they have a diverse group of this is Danica Patrick and her team promoting the need to establish a diagnosis of COPD, and it's in both women and ethnic minorities and others. We know that pulmonary rehab is very crucial, and so those who are more advanced in their disease, pulmonary rehab is an option. Rich Casper isn't here, but he's one of our staunch supporters, and I think there's a picture of him where he's promoting this. And then the other thing is that there's a national network. It's called Breathe Better Network. Breathe California is the only one in Southern California. That was a Breathe Better Network leader. So there's different levels. Breathe California is a Breathe Better Network leader in that category. And partly involved with this conference that's being provided. If you go on the website, it talks about COPD, you learn more, and you breathe better. And so this is what it's all about here. So what else is available for treatment? I'll sort of give you a little, we'll go into some more details. But so you'll have to wait for Brian Type and Chris Cooper to give you some information about that. So that's later on in the morning. So I'm going to end here. So this is Alice. She's going through the looking glass. So what is she going to see in the looking glass? Go through the looking glass. So I'll give you a glimpse of what you might be able to see. What you see is not what is. You know, everything is a little different. It's like Alice in Wonderland in the looking glass. If you were to look through the looking glass here, a little plug for Breathe California. So you look through the website and see that it's very active in COPD. Includes our conference today, but also other programs that are involved in the management of COPD. Happy to entertain any questions.